Hi guys, and welcome to Cross Pest Control of Tampa's training videos. During these videos, we're going to be going over the applications used, how to apply the treatment, and customer expectations.
All right, so now we're going to do the SOPs of a termite inspection, okay? So our tools for a termite inspection are termite tapper, blunt end, sharp end for feeling if we see something like waviness in a wall or we see a soft spot or something like that. Probes, okay? We're very careful with those though. We have our drill. We have the tool, chuck tool for the drill. And then we have our in-ground stations. Okay? To do an inspection, we usually start with a quote. To do a quote, we're going to need our measuring wheel. All we do is we literally walk as close as we can to the foundation, go around obviously any shrubbery, plants, anything like that, and we get the linear feet, and then we base it off of that. Okay, so when we're starting a measurement, we start at a corner. Doesn't matter which corner because we're going to end up here. And all we do is we get as close as we can, go around the bush, okay? And all the while we're doing this, we can also be doing a little bit of an inspection. We can be looking around for dead limbs. We can be looking around for posts that are in the ground that we can look to see if termites are eating up on, anything like that. And we just follow this around. So anything that goes on the contract that's going to be covered needs to be measured. So if you have a separate pool structure or a separate shed or anything like that, it needs to be measured as well. Here we have a pool that we have to go around. We don't have any other separate structures, but what I can show you is one of the sheds in the back. And also, we want to get close, like I said, but we also want to be outside of the gutter because this is where we put the stations. We don't put the stations there. And so, obviously, we don't do any cord tapping, so we're not going to go straight through. We have to go around the pool. So, very simple. Okay. We have a measurement of 313 feet. So, on average, we want to stay between 8 and 10 feet. Let's say 10 on the large end. That means we need to put out 31 stations. That's minimum. I like to stay between 8 and 9 feet. A couple extra stations takes you another 30 seconds to a minute, maybe, and that gives us more coverage. All right, so we start with an outside inspection. You can start inside, you can start outside. Doesn't really matter as long as we get everything covered. But houses are not the only thing you're looking at, because just because there aren't termites inside doesn't mean there's termites out here. If you scan around here, we have a lot of wood, a lot of dead wood. And actually, if you come this way, you can see we have termite damage. Okay, this isn't connected to the house, but they're not very far from the house. So we have to look at everything around when we're doing an inspection outside. Now, you can't look at every single tree, you can't look at every single structure, but sheds, things like that, big pieces of wood that are in contact with the ground need to be inspected. We do an inspection after the customer says, okay, we want to do the service. Now, if they have a termite issue or they see some place that they say, oh, this looks like termite damage, we can go check that. But we're not going to do a full inspection until they get the service. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start on a corner, so we go all the way around and we can end up back here. So what we're looking for is we're going to look for mud tubes up the side. If you have a wooden structure, you're going to look for any kind of waviness in the wood or in the paint. You're going to look for anything along these lines that might have mud tubes coming up, because termites go to structure. They go to straight lines. So they'll forage, they'll hit this, and then they'll start going up and down it. If you want to look at windows, windows are a little bit more important on the inside because you can feel it inside the frame, but you still want to looking for anything that might be termite related. So any of this wood, you can look at the base to see if you see any mud tubes going up any of the big limbs, anything like that. Going along. You know, if they have structures that are in the ground, like say if this was wood, and you can pull it up very easily and put it right back in, you know, you can look, see, no termite damage, okay? Back down, even though that's plastic, but we're just saying if it's wood. So we got dirt here, but you can tell that that's not mud tubes, that's splash up from rain. You can see how much the gutters, there's no gutters, so it splashes the dirt up there. Not quite. Mud daubers, not termites. Let me keep looking. What's going on here? Okay, now we come to some wood. Probes. You got a blunt end one, you got a sharp end one. We don't like to use the sharp end unless we find something that we need to kind of see and peer through. So we take the blunt end, just with this, you can hear, you learn how to hear, you learn how to feel if we got some weak wood. Okay? And then let's say that that's some soft wood there. Then we can take either our sharp end, or if you don't have a screwdriver with you, you got a knife, you just lightly push on it. If it's termite damage, it's gonna go through. Okay? So that's how we find it. And then once we find it, you know, we try and keep it without causing a lot of damage, but sometimes we have to damage it a little bit. What we'll do is we'll go get the customer, say, hey, I think I found something here. Do you mind if I dig around here a little bit? Most of the time they're gonna be like, yes, because they wanna know if they have termites. Now, it could end up being that there's a gap up here somewhere and water's getting in and it's water damage. But we sometimes have to open that up a little bit to find out, okay? So everything around here seems pretty good. No soft spots, so we keep on going. We always gotta be careful because when it comes to subterranean termites, and I didn't say that at the very beginning, that's what we're looking for right now, is subterranean. Usually come from the ground up, but there are things known as what's called an aerial sensation, where they will just start in an attic and they'll somehow get moisture up there if there's a leak or if there's something going on there where there's a lot of condensation. They don't necessarily have to have the soil. 90% of the time, they're gonna start from the soil and go up though. Like I said earlier, we don't have to check all the trees, but trees that are this close, this big, things like that, we're gonna kind of wanna peer around, see if we can see anything coming from the bottom. Kind of dig in here, see if we got any. And it's pretty solid. See if we got any mud tubes. So sometimes they're hard to see. They could be in these big grooves in these oaks. But this looks pretty solid. You can also find branches that have fallen. Things like this. You need to be careful. You know, when you're reaching in, you don't want to grab a snake, but you can always just kind of, well, that's a big railroad tie, so we're not moving that. But things like that, if it's like a 2x4 that you can flip over to see if there's termites underneath it, it's a good idea to do that. So anything like this, found a lot of termites in holes like this a lot of times. Little knots like this sometimes. These all seem pretty solid though. So this is just foam. They can eat right through this. Be careful with stuff like that. This was in touch with soil. We'd always want to check that. Seen that happen a lot of times. So a lot of times you can see damage down here, and the majority of the time it's going to be water damage. If there wasn't an overhang here, a lot of the splashback water gets up here. You see a lot of damage on door frames down at the bottoms. Most of the time it's gonna be water damage, but you always wanna check, you know, take your probes, dig in there a little bit, get a little bit out. If there's mud in there, it's termites. If it's not, it's just water damage. Okay, so something like this would catch my eye. It ends up being mud daubers, but that does look kind of like how mud tubes could be. That's mud daubers though. You always wanna double check. Move stuff away from the wall if you can. If you can't, if there's something, like if there's a structure up against the wall that you can't check, that needs to go on the form. It's an inaccessible area. It needs to go on there, because if you don't, and there are mud tubes going behind there, later on down the road, you know, you get into the court of law, you didn't say you didn't check it because it couldn't be checked, then you're supposed to have checked it, and then you can be in a world of hurt. Okay, everything looks good outside. Here's some more foam that they can eat right through, so we got to be careful with that. But we're not seeing anything out here, except for we did see previous termite damage. That's something that needs to go on there, even though we didn't see any live termites. Those termites had been taken care of previously. So now we'll go to the inside. We're gonna need our termite tapper, which is literally just the handle of a putter. I learned that trick from Paul Matola, and a flashlight. Okay, so we got our probing tools if we run into anything, but literally, you will come up with a format of what you want to do, whether you're right-handed, left-handed. If you want to start one way, go the other. I always like having my right hand towards the wall, so I always start, when I come in the door, I start this way, I make all my cuts this way, go all the way around and end up in the same spot so we don't miss anything. All right, so we checked this on the outside, but still want to check on the inside. Everything seems solid. And then we start using our tapper, baseboards, okay? As you do this, you'll learn to feel and hear the difference of solid wood, sound wood, and termite damaged wood, okay? So we're gonna go all along the baseboards, but while we're doing the baseboards, we're looking on the walls too. Anything that's waviness, you take a flashlight and you go parallel with it like this, you're gonna see every deformity, every mess up, anything in the walls. And then when you see that, you're gonna check it, okay? So something like this, we're probably not gonna move out of the way, but if you don't do it, make sure that you put it on the form that we didn't check there because there was a piece of furniture. You can just say piece of furniture, but you just want to make sure. Also, another thing to do, take pictures with your cell phone. One of the greatest tools you have. Okay, this is light, so we can move all this out of the way. And then you hear that sounds a little different. So we go down there. Oh, feels solid. There's termites eating through here. You might see some dust falling. You might see some particles of the sand and mud falling. Anything like that. Oh, got some spiders up there. Okay, so I know you can't really see this on the camera, but there's a little bit of a deformity right here, and that's just something we want to feel a little bit, see if that's damaged. It's not solid, so we keep going. Where'd my tool go? Okay, so get around here. And not a real plant, but I have seen people who transplant plants in come in with termites. Might want to take a look at these, see if you see any mud tubes coming up, anything like that. Again, not a real plant, but can be a possibility. Okay, you see up here, we got a little bit of a line. Feels solid though. Feels good. Okay, for video's sake, I would make my cut and I would continue this way, go into each room, but we're just gonna do the living room for today. Okay? Okay, just a little hollow back there. Baseboard's good though. Nothing's coming out, no dirt or anything, so I think we're good there. So if this was a big picture frame, you have to be careful. We can see through this one, so if there was any kind of mud tubes or anything like that, we'd be able to see it. But if this was a big picture, this might be something that needs to be excluded on the contract, okay? Unless the customer will allow you to take it down, or they take it down for you. Actually, I would have the customer take it down, not you. Because I have seen infestations where they only know about it after they start moving, and they start taking pictures down, and their whole wall's eaten out behind the picture, and they never knew. So again, we check this from the outside, but to be thorough, you need to check it on the inside. Good, just sounded a little weird. And again, your ear will start to pick that stuff up after a while. Okay, so now, here's the situation. You're not moving this, okay? I don't want anyone moving couches. I don't want anyone moving refrigerators. If a customer wants to do that for you so you can get behind there, that's fine. This needs to be excluded. We need to say wall coming, the right side wall coming off of the front entrance blocked by couch, okay? So underneath that window, we're not able to check. But we can still check the window. But this whole house might be clear, and that might be the one spot that the termites are coming in. So you need to cover yourself and you need to be thorough, okay? Now, you can, if you can get back there and kind of move this a little bit, kind of look, but I would still exclude it on the contract, only because you want to cover yourself and you want to cover the company. So, and hard to get to places, again, that's where the termite tapper comes in. You can tap along. And again, you'll learn how to feel the difference eventually. Or, if it's really bad damage, as soon as you start tapping it, it'll start crumbling. I've seen that before too. So here, a little bit difficult, but with our tapper, we can get through. Take a look at all the walls. Back here, a little bit difficult to tap because of all the wires. So this is something I would probably exclude on the contract as well. And then just like this, and we would just continue to go through things like the refrigerator. Again, I don't want you moving them. To check behind them, either the customer needs to move it or you need to exclude it, okay? Going along here, so more often than not, when you're checking cabinets, you're going to see drywood damage, but it's still a good idea to take a look. You know, just like this. You can't see everything because of the food, but you might catch a mud tube going somewhere that a customer's not catching. Your eyes are trained to be an observer like that, and they're not. So, go along here. Okay. All right, so that's how you do termite inspection inside and out. You would do the whole structure inside and out, and you would go everywhere that you can. This is something that takes time, takes patience, and you need to exclude everything that you cannot get to. Customers can move stuff for you, but if you can't get to it, you need to exclude it. Okay, so now we've done a full inspection, okay? We've done inside and out. And we did not find any termite damage except for the old termite damage over there. So we will not be using any above ground stations. I will explain that later on, what an above ground station is and where it goes. But right now we're just gonna do the in-ground stations, okay? The intra-ground stations. So there's a couple different ways to do it. You can start on a corner. You can take the box with you and make one lap around. And every 10 feet, you drop a station, okay? What I like to do is I'll start and I'll just do one at a time, okay? I just like doing it that way. I would start on the corner, okay? So we need to be outside of the drip line, okay? We want to be within 18 inches, I think it says on the label, but it does allow for you to go further if need be, okay? Two things. You're always looking for electrical wires and pipes, okay? We've had a couple guys bust a couple pipes. We've been pretty good on that, but it has happened. The second thing is, if your customer's home and if they've been there a while, I would always ask them, have they had a liquid termiticide treatment? And it does make a difference, because if they've had it within the last 7 years, you need to extend that all the way out to about 8-10 feet, because that liquid treatment is going to be in there. And if you stick this in there, this is going to be obsolete. It won't go to it, okay? So I always ask them. Most of the time, they're not going to remember, or they're not going to have been there long enough, but it's always smart to ask, okay? So we're going every 8 to 10 feet. And the way I learned how to do it was I measured off 10 feet and then I walked the 10 feet a couple times. So I know that when I go, my first one's going to be here. I know when I go 1, 2.5, that's about 8 feet for me. It can be different for everyone else if you have longer, shorter legs, but that's how I measure. You also can take the wheel with you and you can go along for your first round if you want to do it that way. And every 10 feet, drop one. so you're good that way, or keep it to 8 feet like I like. But as long as you're within 10 feet or under, you're covered. So what I would do, that we're going to say that the customer here, no liquid treatment. So we can go as close as we need to. So I'm going to go as close as I can right in here to start on this corner. Okay? So nice and easy. Now that was an easy drill. It's usually not that easy. Okay? And then from here, I'm going to go 1, 2, step, and then here. And then I know right here is going to be my next one. But if we look over here, we see these pipes. Now, logistically, we hope that it goes straight there, right? But we don't know that. So to be smarter, you can either skip it, but then you're going to make it a 12 or 13 foot gap, or you could go back about 1.5 feet, just to give yourself a little bit of grace, okay? And then, so should be good here. And you can actually, because there's no bushes, we can go a little bit closer here. All right. And so that's the way I do it. Is I'll probably do one side, and then halfway up the other, I get about 10 or 12 stations, and then I'll go back and I'll grab the box, and then I'll just go along where I did them. Boop. And I just did 3 stations in 3 minutes, and that's with talking and showing you. So it can go pretty quick. So we do that all the way around the structure, all the way around the pool. We have to have, remember, we had 313 feet on the measurement, so we have to have a minimum of 31 stations in to cover that 10 foot parameter. I would probably be putting in 34 or 35 stations at the 8 foot mark. For 5 more stations, it takes an extra 2 minutes. You're that much more covered. If for some reason we do hit an electrical line, we do hit a water pipe, please go immediately to the customer, tell them what happened, have them shut off the water or the power, and then call management, and we will take care of it from there, okay? Stuff happens. Please don't just leave and not say anything. Take care of it, okay? So at this point, we did our full installation, right? We have all the stations in the ground that we need. We know exactly where they are. At this point, we would make a graph, okay? We have graph paper. We draw the structure. We put in all the stations. We're not architects, so we try and keep it as uniform as possible so that we know where the stations are. Like on this side of the house, we had 6 stations, so we make sure on the graph there's 6 stations. We don't want 5 stations there, so the next guy that comes misses that 6th station or something like that. But again, we're not architects, so we try to do the best we can. The contract and the termite release should already be taken care of. You do not do an install before those are done, okay? And those are all done digitally. There's one more piece of paperwork along with the contract and the termite release. We need the credit card authorization form. So we need that filled out, and we need to make sure that that goes through and runs before we do this installation, okay? So all 3 of those pieces need to be done before you start doing drill 1, okay? When all that's done, you have a folder. You'll take the graph. You'll walk the customer around if they want. If they don't care, then you don't have to. Just explain the graph. Hey, this is what we drew. This is where all the stations are. This is what's representing what. If there's conducive conditions on there, you need to explain that to the customer. You cannot just write a conducive condition in there and not tell them about it. They need to know because those need to be fixed. Once you've walked them around and shown them everything, they're satisfied, they have no more questions, you hand them the folder and the graph, and that's it. You're done. Okay, so now we've done a full installation, and there was no termites here to begin with, except for that old damage. So we're back at the 6-month mark now. Okay, so we're our first checkup. So what we're gonna do, usually at the 6th month you can still see them. We also have a sensor that if they're buried and you need to find, it's like a metal detector, we can use that. But we already have these out and we can see what's going on. So we'll start here, go all the way around, and all we're gonna do, take our little handy dandy tool, pop it, and we're gonna check the bait. Obviously this bait is clean, no termites. Put it back in, lock it up. Now, let's say we have live termites on here. This down here shows you if it needs to be replaced, okay? So this circle, if you can't see any of the white bait on the outside of this circle, this purple circle here, it needs to be replaced. If you still see white, then there's enough bait to put it back in. If it's all gone or the majority of it's gone and it needs to be replaced, we have other bait, same thing. All you do, pull it right out of its wrapper, put it in, okay? So if we have to replace the bait, say this is an old bait and it's chewed up by termites. Sometimes when we pull this out, well, that dirt will fall in there, and then you go to stick this one in and that's as far as you can get it. We have a clean out tool. It's got the same as the auger, the spirals are just different. So when we go in there, I'll show you. Put some dirt in there. We spin it the same way we would. Gets that dirt out for you. Okay? Nice and easy. Clean all this off so we can put the top cap back on. New bait goes in, top's on, twist it back on. Secure. Nothing gets in there, nothing goes out. Okay? That's how we replace the bait. We have extra top caps. Sometimes when you take these top caps off, these little nipples here will bust. Gotta get a new one for that. If the bait is clean, no problems, put it back in. If it needs to replace it. If every single one needs to be replaced, replace every single one, okay? That would be a terrible termite job, but if it is, it is, okay? So we're checking every single station every time we go out there. All right, so this was the termite damage we found earlier. Old damage, but let's say we found live termites in here. That's what we got these bad boys for, AGs, above ground stations, okay? So, what this is a hard case with a bait packet in it, okay? There's a black cover, and as you can see, what this is the same exact bait that goes in the bait stations that go in the ground, okay? It's just broken up. And what you're gonna do is you can use the case, or you don't have to use the case. You can mold these to anything, but what you're gonna do is you cut a little slit here. You're gonna fill it with water. Once that water soaks in, you're gonna mush it up so like it's Play-Doh, okay? Then you're gonna cut a big slit down the middle so that the termites can get in and the bait can get out. And then all you're gonna do is you'll put this here. We have staple guns, we have duct tape, we have painter's tape, we have all kinds of things to secure it. You also have hand drills with you, which each one of these hard cases comes with screws. So what you can do is you can put this in here, just like so it's flat. Put it on here, and then you can drill this right into here. Then you can mush the bait down into those cracks and crevices. You put this on, and you put 2 more drills in there. So 1, this doesn't move, and 2, nothing else can get in there. No dogs or kids or anything like that, so it's safe, okay? Now, if it's out of the way, and you don't have to worry about using the hard box, you always want to make sure that you have the black cover on it, because termites do not like light. So we have to make sure that it stays dark in there. And what we would do is we would do it just like this, and we could tape it on here, or we could put staples in here so it stays, okay? So that's how an above ground station works. Now, inside, the above ground stations work great because sometimes there's damage in a corner. You obviously can't use the box in a corner, but this thing will wedge just about anywhere. You can wedge it in here, you know, up here, anything like that, it can go anywhere. That's the great thing about these. So very useful when you have live termites and termite damage. Doesn't really help you when you don't, but it's a great tool to have.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. We appreciate you watching. If there is any questions at any time, please let us know. If not, we'll see you on the next one.